So in this video, we're going to be talking about simplifying a complex fraction. We're going to talk about it as we're doing an example. So many times people see a complex fraction and they immediately freak out, like, that's really hard, I don't know how to do that. What you really want to think of this as three separate problems. You have a problem up here on the top, you have your second problem down here on the bottom, and then once you've done the first and the second problem, that's where the third problem comes in. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at our example. So here we have the complex fraction, the quantity x divided by 4 plus 3 halves divided by the quantity 2 minus 3 over x. So let's look at our first problem here. So again, our first problem is x over 4 plus 3 halves. And in order to do this problem, I'm going to have common denominators. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this fraction by 2 over 2. And that's going to give me the answer to my first problem, or at least a part of it. So I'm going to have x over 4 plus 6 over 4, which gives me x plus 6 over 4. So I have my first answer. So what I'm going to do is just kind of mark this, that I'm going to need this later. Okay? So now we're ready to look at our second problem. And our second problem is 2 minus 3 over x. So remember that 2 means 2 over 1. And so in order to do this problem, we want to multiply to get common denominators. So we're going to multiply over on that left side fraction by x over x. And that is going to give us 2x over x minus 3 over x, which simplifies to 2x minus 3 over x. Now this is the answer to our second problem, so we're going to go ahead and grab that because we're going to need that. So now we're ready to do our third problem, where we're going to put our first answer and our second answer together. Now I would like to point out that this is a division problem, but we are going to be writing it not as a fraction, but using kind of like the elementary school symbol. So what I mean is that we're going to take number 1, the answer to number 1, and then we're going to divide it by the answer to number 2. So let's see what that looks like. So here we see that we have x plus 6 over 4 divided by 2x minus 3 over x. So I have a fraction divided by a fraction, which means that I'm going to keep, change, flip. And at this point, all we need to do now is put them together. So we'll have x times x plus 6 over 4 times 2x minus 3. And then we just want to check and make sure that we can't simplify this fraction anymore. And we can't. Nothing goes into each other. So this is going to be our answer, but we're not done. We have to write down the things that x is not allowed to be. So x isn't allowed to be a 3 halves, but we don't need to write that down because it's still in the denominator. However, because we had to flip our second fraction, that means that this x was originally in the denominator, which means that that x cannot equal 0. You can't say that. So we have to write down that x cannot equal 0. Now remember, we get that by taking whatever value that was, what quantity that was, and setting it equal to 0 and solve. And in this case, because the x was by itself, when we set it equal to 0, there wasn't anything else to solve for. And we are now finished.